name is Cheryl Victorian, Sheryl, last name Victorian. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Waco Police Department. This morning at 10:07, we received a call to the Rex Place Apartments at 701 Rambler in regards to a shooting that had just occurred. Details provided in that call was that a gentleman had been shot by a shotgun by a suspect. Officers were dispatched to this location at 10:10. We also had AMR dispatched at the same time. Our officers arrived on scene at about 10:12, and it was an active scene. Okay, so once our officers arrived, the suspect had barricaded himself inside of his apartment. Our SWAT guys were very astute. They were listening in on the radio and realized that this was a barricaded situation with someone with a weapon. They came over to the scene, and as they were staging, our suspect came out with a weapon. Our SWAT, in addition to our hostage negotiations team, were called to the scene as well. Suspect came out with a weapon. Shots were fired, and our officers subsequently fired at the suspect, who had a weapon. Officers were very, very careful in their approach since the suspect still had a weapon. The suspect had been struck, however, he was still moving again, so officers had to be very, very careful when they approached the suspect. When they finally made it up to the suspect and engaged with the suspect, they started performing life-saving measures on him. When they turned him over, they did locate the weapon. We also recovered a 12-gauge shotgun from the scene in addition to the weapon that was located under the suspect. AMR was then allowed to come to the scene to transport the suspect, who subsequently died from his injuries. The victim from the initial call also died from his injuries. We do not have any information on the motive for the first shooting. As soon as we get that information, we will share that information with you. Keep in mind that this is all preliminary information, and we will keep you guys updated. I just want to take a moment to thank our AMR, thank the fire department, our officers that were on the scene. This is a very, very tragic situation for two families. As we have information that becomes available, we will be sure and share it with you guys.
Do we know the relationship between the suspect and the victim in the first shooting yet?
No, we don't. We don't have any information, no motive, no motivation, but once we have that information and notify next of kin for these families, for both our suspect and our victim, we will share that information with you guys.
Are Texas Rangers involved in the investigation?
Yes, thank you very much for asking. As is customary, our officers will go on administrative leave, those officers involved in the shooting, and the investigation will be conducted by a joint investigation with the Texas Rangers, who are already on scene, as well as our Special Crimes Division.
How many officers are on administrative leave?
So right now we have at least 9 officers who fired their weapon. We do not know how many shots were fired. When we get that information, we will let you guys know. But we have 9 officers that discharged their weapon as a result of the suspect coming out of his apartment with a weapon and demonstrating that he was a threat because he had already shot someone.
No other units involved of any sort? I know I talked to a gentleman who said his door was kicked down, everything was okay in that unit.
So thank you very much for asking that question as well. Anytime there are multiple rounds fired by our police officers, one happens to go into a window or a door, we want to immediately get into that location to determine if anyone had been injured, and that's what our officers were doing. And thank God that nobody was in there and that he was not injured. But yes, so when that happens, we want to make sure that we are very, very cognizant of whether or not anybody else was injured as a result of us firing our weapons or suspects firing their weapons.
Do you believe that this was an isolated incident? Is there any risk to the community?
Thank you. Great question. It appears to be an isolated incident. Again, we don't know what the dispute is. However, the suspect in this incident unfortunately has succumbed to his injuries, so we don't think that there is any subsequent threat to the public.
Is this area evacuated, and how long will it be evacuated?
The area is not evacuated. However, the area within the crime scene is not going to be accessible for several hours. So we recommend people stay out of this area, and specifically from around the area where the incident occurred.
Was the Ymca ever on lockdown?
That's not information that I have right now. I'm being told no, that the Ymca was not on lockdown. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much for your time.